When Girard Pringle gets to the University of Miami, that dude is going to be a problem.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, if there is such a thing. This is a happier Monday. We've started to see Miami Hurricanes recruits dominating on the high school scene. We're just a few days away from meaningful college football happening. So I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Now, every time the recruiting overlord joins us, he's brought to you by the great folks at LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire could feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. So Armwood High School, the high school of Miami Hurricanes running back commit, Girard Pringle, took on Miami Norland, and it was a steamrolling Brian Smith in Armwood's favor, and the MVP of that game was Miami Hurricanes four-star committed running back Girard Pringle. I haven't seen the official stat line out there yet, if there is one, but he was well over 100 yards, scored 2 touchdowns, including a very long touchdown. Pringle is a guy who I know was flying a little bit under the radar for a while, Brian, but that dude has arrived.
We thought that he was pretty good last year, beating up on Norland's defense.
Yeah.
That is certainly verification. For anybody that doesn't know, Norland's got a lot of kids that will get scholarships to play at the next level. So I was impressed. I heard about it, and I saw a couple of tweets with video. Like, he had an 80-yarder to seal the deal. Like, he is a really good player. And I was curious how he would do, like the longevity of it. Like, again, end of the game, he had a major play. So he's a durable back with home run speed that never goes out of style.
Well, also on this episode with the recruiting overlord, we're going to talk about some pre-University of Florida game revelations and thoughts, because Miami's been giving us some good stuff to work with this training camp series that they've put out on YouTube, the Canes Camp series. What it would take, or if it's even possible for Miami to land a top 5 class. Top 10 is obviously very doable. They're in the top 10 right now. But a little bit more on Pringle, Brian, because also Miami seems to think so highly of Girard Pringle that I think there's a more than likely chance he's going to be the only running back in this class for Miami. There's others that they've looked at. They still have an iron in the fire for Byron Lewis from Heritage, who's not decided just yet. But for everything that I'm hearing, Brian, Miami feels very comfortable with Girard Pringle. They brought in multiple running backs over the last couple of classes. So this time around, Pringle might be the one and only.
Every now and then you can't take 2 running backs. You take 2 every year, you have 8. I mean, that's just not going to work. If you're going to take one that scores a lot of touchdowns. That's my philosophy. So he's a big play guy. He's a little bit different than the big back, but he is good size, and he's got the tree trunk legs. He's a power runner on the interior with great moves. He's a little bit of everything, so I don't think there's any problem with that. For those that haven't seen him play, a little Henry Parrish in his game, can break tackles, but once he gets that corner, he can go. So that's a really good football player. And if Miami gets one, I think they'll be fine.
Looking ahead to what's to come in recruiting, you and I will circle back to it, but we've spoken a lot over the past several days about the players that Miami has just landed. You just landed Bryce Fitzgerald for the defensive backfield. In terms of who the next Miami Hurricanes recruiting commit might be, the one that we all have circled on the calendar is that multiple teams do, but August 30th, 5-star wide receiver Jaime Ffrench from Jacksonville Mandarin High School is going to be making an announcement. Miami is in the top 4, along with Texas, and the Longhorns have seemingly been trending out in front here. LSU, Miami's already had multiple recruiting battles with LSU. We're going to get at least one more of those before this is all said and done. He also added the Tennessee Volunteers into his top 4 after previously having a top 3, but the Vols are in there now. Is there any new intel less than 2 weeks away from the decision of Jaime Ffrench?
Texas is the one, as you said, that is trending. I've read a little bit about that. I haven't gotten any phone calls on a final decision, which doesn't surprise me about Jaime. Known him for several years, and he's a kid we all knew that was going to be a great player for a long time. I think he'll make a decision within a day or two of what his like the final day. Like he's that guy. I don't think he'll make a definitive decision before then. That's just my opinion, and I haven't heard anything different. I'm surprised I haven't gotten any text from everybody saying they think that he's going to and fill in the blank. I haven't had one person tell me they know where he's going. He's kept it really close to the vest. So this is going to come down to the very end for Jaime Ffrench.
Yeah, I know for Miami fans, they see an opportunity to snag a 5-star player after just having missed out on one, at least missed out on the verbal commitment last week with Jose Epinesa announcing that he's going to continue the family tradition at Iowa. But that was a big-time 5-star defensive lineman who chose the Hawkeyes over Miami and several others. And so after, missing out on Jose, if it doesn't go Miami's way with Ffrench, they also did miss out on Ben Hanks Jr. last week. Is a top 5 class still a possibility, Brian, or do you think Miami probably settles somewhere between 7 to 10?
I think it's possible, but they're going to need a couple of things to happen. One, they're going to have to flip somebody, and they would certainly need to get Ffrench. It's not out of the realm, but they're in on 5-star guys. Anytime that's possible, you have a chance. I still think the latter decision that you mentioned, 6 to 10 range, is more likely, but the top-heavy group that's at the top, it's the same schools, and Miami's just below those. I'm curious if they can flip anybody because, tell you what, Mario and his crew the last 2 years have done a great job from September through December and getting guys on campus to reconsider Miami or, somebody new. That's a possibility as well. The other thing is I don't know how many guys they will take in the end. Depending on the class ranking system, some of them go by points. So the number of guys you get matters more. I don't really agree with that. I'm more interested in Miami getting guys that are high quality and not worrying about as many projects. Miami struggled for a long time because they took too many of those guys. They're doing much better in that category. And then it's not the vast number of players. It's getting 8 to 10 really great players. Anybody else develops out of class, that's a bonus.
So another Miami Hurricanes verbal commit. This is class of 2026, but quarterback Dereon Coleman for powerhouse program in Orlando, Jones High School. Coleman, his team Jones got a big 43-21 victory over Seminole High School. And Coleman, Brian, threw 4 touchdowns in that game, including a 99-yard touchdown where he put perfect touch on the football. This is a player you were ahead of the curve when it came to scouting Dereon Coleman. What kind of a junior season do you expect him to have, and what can Miami Hurricanes fans expect in a couple of years?
Well, considering he's got a lot of talent around him and he's a really cerebral kid, he knows that if I just get the ball out to my playmakers, I'll be in good shape. Speaking of which, Larry Miles is a kid that Miami fans need to become familiar with. He's the junior receiver at Jones and Miami's all over. So they got all kinds of guys to throw to, and he just spreads the ball around. He doesn't get greedy. He'll take the short pass. He'll take the deep pass, whatever. The most important thing to note about Coleman is just his ability to scan the field, immediately know where to go with the football. He's really ahead. And that is so rare for a kid that just played one game of his junior year. It's wild because it usually takes a couple years of college to get that way. He's making pre-snap reads. And if they switch defense, he can switch it up and figure out where to go after the snap. Really rare. So that with the accuracy that he has, which is also uncanny, makes him a very dangerous player. So he is incredibly accurate.
Well, Miami Hurricanes are under 2 weeks away from taking on the Florida Gators. What are we learning about this Miami team? And also on the flip side, what have we learned about Florida? What's going to happen in the swamp on August 31st? You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. I'm only getting started with FanDuel. Guys, we've been making money all summer long on America's #1 sportsbook. And yes, you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel. We also have something a little different for you here. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. And then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. It's the most amazing thing ever, guys. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel. Folks, we're also proudly driven by eBay Motors here on Locked On Canes. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your #1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time and your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. Make sure you're looking out later in the week for our big-time conference previews. I was part of the ACC conference preview, Kenton Gibbs and I. That's going to be dropping on Wednesday right here on Locked On Canes, and wherever you get your podcasts, we'll run through the entire Atlantic Coast Conference. We are joined here by Locked On Network recruiting expert Brian Smith, who you can follow on X at FBScout_Florida. So, Brian, you and I have both been pretty captivated by this Canes Camp YouTube series. Certainly we saw a lot from Derek Nicholson, Coach D Nick, who's a super hyped up guy in practices. Saw a lot from OJ Frederic, young cornerback who's already stepping up as a true freshman in practices. Ruben Bain was featured prominently in this past episode, and Nez Cooper on the offensive line. So, I mean, how are you feeling heading into that game against Florida, and what were the biggest revelations that you've seen on the Canes Camp series?
The amount of depth that Miami has. It's something that we thought, but it's different when your own eyes see it. We both know that Mario is not the most friendly with letting out information to the public, and he's letting them do this. What's that tell you? He knows they have a really good team in terms of just raw talent, and they're competing. He talked about that a little bit in that video, talking about the passion for getting after it, going to the scrimmage, etc. He knows they have a team that can be really good this year. So now it's kind of enjoy it. The only other thing that I want to add is it seems like the team's pretty well together just from watching it. You know, there's a little chirping like Ruben talks at practice and stuff like that. He may not be the biggest guy to chirp, but he does a little too, and everybody has fun with it. So I think this is going to be a little bit of a surprise team. I know some people have talked about Miami possibly being a playoff team. I think they're right there as well. This kind of helps me feel a little more comfortable, though. The eyes don't lie.
Yeah, it's right. And another player that was getting some recognition on the show is Chris Johnson. Nez Cooper had a quote where you only need to give that guy one hole and he's going to go. Yeah. That speed, that's the type of speed, Brian, that you cannot teach. And I know we've all been talking about, of course, Damian Martinez, who, by the way, you could see he scored a long touchdown run in the second scrimmage. They had a couple of camera angles of that. I think it was a 60-yard touchdown run that he scored in the scrimmage. Everyone, rightfully so, is excited about Mark Fletcher heading into his second year. But then Chris Johnson is one that doesn't get talked about enough, I don't think.
I don't think people realize just how fast that Chris is. I've seen him run at practice. I've seen him run on track, etc. Like, that guy has natural speed that you can't teach. He was a state champion in Florida in the 100. I don't, what more do you need to know? Because, I mean, you're a South Florida guy. There aren't many states with the track speed that Florida has. Texas, maybe, that's about it. But he was state champ. Now, when he's in pads, here's a surprising thing about him. He runs the ball well between the tackles. He's not the biggest guy. He's got good vision. He's got quick feet, and he's still learning. He played receiver part of his time growing up, so still adjusting to running back. So look for them to throw him the ball some too. Not many linebackers are going to tackle Chris one-on-one. I can guarantee you that.
Now, I know you and I have both had conversations on and off the record with our guy Brandon Olson from Locked On Gators. And I know Brandon's afraid to give me too much info because he knows I'm gonna twist his words. Like, he's a little secretive with me. We did have Brandon for a crossover episode last week. We talked a little bit about Florida's training camp and Miami's training camp, but I continue, Brian, to see and hear the concerns about Florida's offensive line for one thing, and then really not knowing about the Montrell Johnson recovery, their starting running back, if or if not, he's going to be ready in time for that Miami game. But when you talked about Miami's depth, on the flip side, should there be concerns about Florida's depth?
At certain positions, I'm a little curious. I've been studying their depth chart, what I think it is. Of course, I doubt they're going to give as much as some other schools do, but I have questions. Can their offensive line do anything in critical moments? Because Miami's front is really good. Like, I don't think people realize how good Kiko Maligoa is. I mean, that guy's an animal, and he's playing behind about 8 guys, rotating in and out, that he can find a hold of blitzer. He's the best blitzer in college football from the middle linebacker spot. And, of course, you got Bain. You got Messidors, who's apparently having a tremendous camp. So I'm really worried about Florida's offensive line. Are they really going to be better this year? I have not heard that. So I think that's their biggest problem. And then second, Johnson. Like, you can't lose your best running back in fall camp. That just, I hate it for the kid. I hate it for the Gators, everybody. I'm not a Gators fan, but I don't want to see anybody lose and possibly get stomped because they're going to be playing freshmen and sophomores at running back. In pass protection against Miami, I don't like how that's going to work out for them. Prove me wrong. Now, they did use one of their tight ends last year quite a bit in pass protection to stay in the back. That's not a good sign.
No.
And they still gave up 39 sacks, which is absolute. That should never happen at the University of Florida. Like, you and I are not Gator fans, but we understand that's not a hard place to win. Come on, man. That's bad.
Yeah.
So they've got a veteran quarterback. He's very accurate. He completed 72.9%, but will they protect him? And then they got Elijah Badger coming in at receiver. Eugene Wilson, really good player. But I'm not sure how the depth and the rotation at receiver is going to work either. Miami secondary is vulnerable to me until otherwise proven. But that's their weakest link. They got a ton of talent, but they gave up too many big plays last year. If Florida can't hit on those, they're not beating Miami. So I just think that the quarterback's going to be on his back too much.
We always appreciate the time and the insights from Brian Smith. Follow him on X at FBScout_Florida. Check him out all over the Locked On Podcast Network. He is our recruiting overlord. Brian, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again next week.
I appreciate it, sir. Talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. We'll talk to everyone next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. I think we're going to be having Randall Thrill Hill on the show tomorrow. So we have a lot to look forward to. We'll talk to you guys then on another episode right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.